Okay, moving right along. Chapter 87. Chapter Pei Zayin. A little bit of a shorter capital, only 7 psukim. But there's what to talk about. Livnei Koidach, to the sons of Koidach, Mizmar, a psalm, Shir, a song, Yesudasoi, its foundation, Behadidei Kodesh, on the holy mountains. Pasuk Beis, Oyev Hashem. Hashem loves Sharei Tzion, the gates of Tzion, the gates of Zion. Mikoel, Mishkenos Yaakov, from all the dwelling places of Jacob. Nichbades, honorable things, Midubar Bach, are spoken of it, or in it, about it. Ir Ha'elikim, Sela, the city of Hashem, Sela. Azkir, I will remind. Rahav is referring to Egypt. Bavel, Babylonia. Liyoide, about those who know me. Hine, for Pleshes, which is Tyre, and Sur, which is Ethiopia. Im Kush. No, yeah, Pleshes is for the Plishtim, right? The Plishtim. The Philistines, Tsur is Tyre, and Cush is Ethiopia. Zayulat Sham, this was born there.
Rachav, they're conquering Rachav now, the idea.
Yeah. Where? Right.
Yeah.
Were the Philistines one particular group, or it was like everybody was different?
Philistines were a group. Definitely a group. Yeah. We talked many times throughout the Nevi'im about the Philistines. Yeah. Pasuk Hey, number 5. Tzion, and to Tzion Yeyamar should be said, Ish v'ish, person and person, man and man. Yulad Ba was born in it. And he will establish it on the Most High. Pasuk 6, Hashem Yisper b'chsei v'amim. Hashem counts in the written of the nations. Ze Yulad Sham. This one was born there. Sela. And the final pasuk, Visharim, and those who sing, Kechaylulim, as well as those who play on musical instruments, or he also translates dancers. So there's both. Different commentaries translated different ways. Kol mayonai bach, all my innards are bach towards you, Hashem. Okay, so that is I went through it before I started learning it. Maybe when I started learning it, I went through it multiple times with different svarim just for the basics translation. Because even sometimes the common basic translation is straightforward. Here, for me at least, the basic translation is like, what is this Tehillim? What is this? These psukim coming to tell us? Okay, so on the top, page 87, chapter 87, the few lines on top, it says, composed to be sung in the Holy Temple. This psalm praises the glory of Jerusalem, a city that produces many great scholars, eminent personalities, and persons of good deeds. It also speaks of the good that will occur in the Messianic era. So we'll go through it now a little bit more in depth. We talked already about, we had many chapters with the Livnei Koirach, about the sons of Koirach. So we already talked about what it means and the different opinions of what it means, if it was them, if it was written for them, if they were
When it talks about Hararei Kadosh, we know that David ran away from Shaul. When he ran away from Shaul, he went into the Harei Yehuda, into the Judean hills. That's where he was hiding. This triggers in me an idea it must be, and the Judean hill is very around Jerusalem. It's right near Jerusalem.
Right.
The Judean hills. So Hararei Kodesh.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where he gathered his first group of men to, like a small army he gathered, and he ran away.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. But for the most part, Tzion is always referring to Yerushalayim, and it seems that over here talking a lot about Yerushalayim.
But the Judean
Um,
is.
is next door.
Jerusalem, is right,
It's
right
next
there.
door. Yeah.
I was on a kibbutz in the Judean Hills. I used to go to Jerusalem 10 minutes by bus.
Yeah, yeah. Everything in Judea is a suburb of Yerushalayim. Exactly. You know, like where Rob is, right? Rob Steiner. So it's literally it's a hop, skip, and a jump from Yerushalayim, and he's in the
on the
Judean
other side of
Hills.
the line, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what the Judean Hills are the other side of the line.
They're very beautiful.
90% of it. Yeah.
The temperature is very, very nice there.
Hmm.
They're just
It's green.
beautiful.
It's green.
Green.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So it seems that the sons of Korach composed this to talk about Yerushalayim, specifically, actually, more, in general, to talk about Eretz Yisrael, but more specifically about Yerushalayim. So again, we mentioned already that the sons of Korach. So we already had a few chapters of Tehillim that talked about Bnei Korach and the difference of opinions of what it's referring to, whether it was the sons of Korach, actual sons of Korach in the desert. They composed this with the divine intuition, whether David HaMelech composed it for the great-great-grandsons of Korach that were Leviim, also maybe by the name of Korach, named after their great-great-grandfather, and they, in order for them to sing it in the temple. So there's different commentaries of exactly of what exactly is referring to Bnei Korach over here. But ultimately, we know that what happened with Bnei Korach, the sons of Korach recognized that what their father did was wrong, right? What happened? Moshe Rabbeinu, Korach comes and says to Moshe Rabbeinu, what's all this nepotism all about, right? Why are you keeping the Levite jobs for yourself? The Kohen you gave to your brother, you know, like imagine in a shul, first Aliyahs go to Kohen, we'll decide who's a Kohen, right? And he gets the aliyahs, and that's it, right? So with the nepotism. So he was complaining about it. He says, everybody is holy. Why are you keeping it all for yourself? That was the complaint of Korach, right? And what happened? He ended up getting swallowed into the earth. His sons recognized that what their father did was not right, and they did tshuva, and they went away from the ways of their father. So the Yavet says over here that they're trying to bring out the uniqueness or the specialty of Yerushalayim and Eretz Yisrael in general, but Yerushalayim in particular. So he says, just like the sons of Korach admitted and recognized that Moshe and Aaron are greater than the rest of Shevet Levi, of the rest of the tribe of Levi. It took them time, but they came to that realization. So too, Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, is greater than any other land in the world. Just look how many people trying to fight over it. That's enough proof to see that it's the greatest land in the world. And that's basically what we're going to be talking about in this chapter. So pasuk number 1, Livnei Korach, Mizmer Shir. So first of all, it says Yisudasai, its foundation, B'harei Kodesh. So what does this mean? That its foundation is in the mountains, in the holy mountains. What does it mean, foundation? So the way I understood Rashi is that Rashi comes here and says that what does it mean, its foundation, is that the essence of this chapter, the foundation of this chapter, is about Har Tzion and Yerushalayim, about the Mount Zion and the city of Yerushalayim. The Alshich says that Yisudasai, the main idea that he's trying to bring out in this chapter, the main in this psalm, is to show Hashem's love for Eretz Yisrael, Hashem's love for the land of Israel. I don't know if you're familiar, but on Temple Mount, there's a rock, right? What's the rock called? Remember, anybody know what the rock is called? It's called Evan Hashasiyah. Evan Hashasiyah, it's the rock where and the Holy of Holies was built literally over that rock, Evan Hashasiyah. And according to the sages, our sages say that is the foundation of the world. That rock, Evan Hashasiyah, that's the foundation of the world. on Har Habayis, that Even HaShia. So some say that that since he mentions over here foundation Yisudasai, so Mamlayis brings down that some say that David HaMelech composed this on Har Moriah on Temple Mount by Even HaShia by the rock.
Where I imagine, where I think it was said that the ladder of Yaakov
Yeah,
went from this rock to Shemayim.
yeah, that's where Yaakov took his nap. That's where Yaakov took his
this
nap.
From the rocks.
Exactly.
That's where Abraham
Brought
almost
Yitzchak.
sacrificed Yitzchak.
Yeah, exactly. The history that the Jewish people have on that mountain is endless. Yeah. Okay, pasuk 2, pasuk base. So Oyav Hashem Sharit Tzion, Hashem loves Sharit Tzion, which means the gates of Zion, the gates of Tzion, from all the other dwellings of Yaakov. So first of all, what's all the other dwellings of Yaakov? Referring to the rest of the Jewish people, all the other places. Sharit Tzion, the gates of Tzion. So obviously, so the Radak says, obviously, even though Hashem loves all the encampments of Jacob, meaning all the anywhere anywhere that Jews live, it's not limited to one place or another. Wherever Yidden live, so there Hashem loves it. But but even more so when it comes to the gates of Tzion. Why the gates of Tzion? Because according to tradition, and this is something, I don't know when it stopped. I mean, maybe it stopped when they stopped having gates to cities. But traditionally, in Jewish cities, the Torah scholars used to sit and by the gates. That's where they were, by the Sha'arim. We say it in Eshes Chayil. The only time the husband is mentioned, right? Eshes Chayil is all about a woman of valor, right? And there's one mention of the husband. What's the mention of the husband? Naida b'sha'arim baila. That the husband is known at the gates of the city. If you didn't know what it means, it's not so nice. What do you mean? It's known by the gates of the city. That's where he's known. No, because in Jewish tradition, that's where the Torah scholars sat. That's where the judges sat. That's where the chachamim. That's where the sages. That's where they were. So therefore, the elders, the Zkanim, that's where they were sit. So the Radak says that the places of Torah study, other commentaries also take it even deeper, but the idea of the places of Torah study is more something that Hashem likes more than just the encampments, than Mishkanais Yaakov, than the encampments of the Jewish people, encampments of Yaakov. There's in the Mamleis he brings a whole story. So I'm not going to go through the whole story, but it brings, and this pasuk was used as proof. So you know that on Chol HaMoed, so Yom Tov, Shabbos, you're not allowed to do malacha, right? So for example, if you if all of a sudden on Shabbos or on Yom Tov you think of an amazing Dvar Torah, you have to remember it because you could only type it up after Shabbos or write it down after Shabbos. You can't do it on Shabbos. But the question was, what about Chol HaMoed? So Chol HaMoed, you're allowed to do certain malachas, but still it's Chol HaMoed. It's the mundane of the Moed of the holiday, and still we're careful about not doing certain things. L'chatchila, you're not allowed to write on Chol HaMoed. And some say that if you're going to write the Chol HaMoed, you should do it with Ashino. You should do it with your left hand instead of your right hand. Let's say you should do it differently because you really theoretically you shouldn't be unless there's so for example, is someone allowed to work on Chol HaMoed? You know what I find to be fascinating? You ever heard of the camera store in Manhattan called B&H Photo? It's a square block in Manhattan. It's a square block in Manhattan. Next time you're in Manhattan, you should go and check it out. It is fascinating. They have everything there. They hire, like, so let's say in the camera section, they hire photographers. So photographers that do weddings in the evenings, they'll take a few hours and they'll work there. So they hire people that know the equipment very, very well. I once went in there and needed something for a computer, and the information that you get there, it's amazing. It's owned by a couple of Chassidim that live in Monsey, if I remember correctly. And for the 2 weeks before Yom Tov, before Sukkot, and before Pesach, they're handing out notes that, by the way, we're going to be closed for over a week because Chol HaMoed, they don't open. L'chatchila, to open up on Chol HaMoed, we don't work on Chol HaMoed. Now there is a hat there, and this is not something new. The Gemara already talks about it. That if you are gonna lose a lot of money by not working Chol Hamoed, so you're allowed to work Chol Hamoed, right? If it's only to make extra money, so then better not to work. But if you're gonna lose, let's say you're gonna lose a big client, or like you need to, so you're allowed to work on Chol Hamoed. So yeah,
What about if you sell your business to one of your non-Jewish employees?
and they're working.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing that people do also
And you
for
sell
Chol
them
Hamoed.
for an astronomical sum, which they have to give you when Yontif is over. When Yontif is over, they don't give it back.
If I remember correctly, what they do is that they say that the salary that you're getting this month is from the work that you're doing this week, right? That way, the money, the value that's coming in this week is going to pay a non-Jew that's working, not a Jew that's working, or something like that. That's a different thing. Recently, talking to someone that was sitting Shiva, you're not allowed to work during Shiva, but his office was open because it needed to be open. So they did a similar thing.
But Shiva is just custom, isn't it?
Not to work during Shiva? No, you're not allowed to work during Shiva. Huh? You're not allowed.
I'm not,
You're not
it's halacha, you're not allowed to,
Yeah.
and sitting Shiva is also halacha.
Yeah.
I thought it was just custom.
No. You have to. Yeah. Shulchan Aruch. Yeah. And it's learned from the ideas of Shiva and Shleishim are learned from biblical verses, especially Shleishim. It says at the end of the Torah that the Jewish people cried about Moshe Rabbeinu for 30 days. That's where we learned Shleishim from. After he passed away. So where was I? So there's I think it's a medrash that talks about that they were trying to figure out if you thought of a chiddush in Torah, you thought about something in learning, are you allowed to write it down on Chol Hamoed or not? Right? So long story short, they say they bring down this pasuk beis. Oyev Hashem shari tzion. Hashem loves the study of Torah, right? We explained it as Hashem loves the study of Torah. So Hashem loves the study of Torah, and this person is studying Torah. And if he doesn't write it down on Chol Hamoed, what's going to happen? He's going to forget it. So just like the guy that if he doesn't go into work during Chol Hamoed, he's allowed to go into work because it's a potential big loss. So of course, if there's going to be a big loss of Torah, and Hashem loves Torah, so therefore he's allowed to write down his chiddush on Chol Hamoed. And so it's interesting because they used the pasuk over here in our capital. So I found it interesting. Okay, pasuk Gimel, pasuk number 3. Nichbada medubar bach. So there's a lot of ways you could translate this because nichbada is from the word kavod, from the word honor, right? And so honorable things are talked about you. So Rashi comes and says that Hashem speaks honor of Yerushalayim. Hashem speaks kavod of Yerushalayim. So Rashi says, but that's the beginning of the pasuk. What's the end of the pasuk? What does he say? He says about Yerushalayim that you are Ir Elikim, that you are the city of Hashem. So Hashem talks kavod of the city, that you are the city of, you're my city, my capital land, right? And Selah, in this case, means forever. Usually, very often, Selah means forever. So you're my city forever. The Metzudah says that it's not referring that Hashem is talking honorable things about Yerushalayim. It's about people that live in Yerushalayim, or things that are learned in Yerushalayim are honorable things. What's in Yerushalayim? It says the Sanhedrin and the discussion of Torah. That's the kavod that's spoken about in Yerushalayim, right? Nichbadis medubar bach. There's honorable things that are discussed in Yerushalayim. What? The discussion of the Sanhedrin and the discussion of Torah, and therefore, since there is the learning of Torah in Yerushalayim, so therefore it's going to be Ir Elikim Selah, it's going to be the city of God forever. Okay,
We're talking about Sion. Sion is Jerusalem. Sion takes a Torah. That's the holy city, God's city, and this is what we're talking.
No, that's exactly what, I don't know why you're saying that you don't like what the Metzudah says. The Metzudah is saying the same thing that you just said.
No.
The first explanation is that Hashem is saying it about the city.
Right.
The second explanation is from the Metzudah is that the reason it's Ir Elikim, it's Hashem's city, is because of the study of Torah that happens in that city. And that's the nichbadis, that's the honorable things that are discussed in the city, is the study of Torah.
The most important point is that why are they discussed in that city? because that's the city of Hashem. That's the holy place where we have to discuss.
Right.
Not by chance that we discuss there. It's not by chance that the Temple Mount is there. It's not by chance.
Right.
Why did Hashem pick Jerusalem? Why not to place a couple miles down the road? Why
They've
Jerusalem?
seen
Huh? I can hear you.
I don't know. You're asking me.
I don't know. That's why I'm
It's
asking you.
it's named Yerushalayim.
There's two sides to it. You could either say that it's not that its uniquenesses because Hashem chose it, and there's no,
Yeah,
or
the question-
that it's so unique, and therefore Hashem chose it to be. And there's both sides to it, and both have tremendous meaning, right? The truth is, Eretz Yisrael always was the crossroads of the world. You had to go from Africa to Europe, right?
He said to Avram, go for a journey of 3 days to a place that I will show you. He doesn't tell him which place it is. But obviously, that's where he wanted him to go.
But
Right.
How could I ask, what do you want to ask God why? How do you want to know why?
Okay,
So many other
the
things
Radak.
to figure out why.
So we mentioned Rashi, we mentioned the Mitzudas. The Radak says that there's so many honorable things that said about Yerushalayim. Whether it's Hashem that said it, whether other people said, there's so many nichbades, there's so many honorable things that are said about Yerushalayim that make it greater than any other land, and it's Hashem's city because he decided that he wanted to dwell in it. Allah b'machshava, he decided that's what he wanted. Sela, we said, means that it's going to be Hashem's city forever, right? That's what Sela means. So the Alshich says that it's a reference to the Western Wall. It's to the Kaisel Maravi, that the Shechina never left. Sela forever is not just about the city, that it's a unique city and a special city and Hashem's city, but even the Shechina has never left the remnants of the Beis Hamikdash, the Kaisel Maravi, the Western. And Mamlei says, he says, he puts it on its head a little bit. He says, yeah, there's many honorable things that are said about Yerushalayim. Many nice things, honorable things, good things. You know, we had Rashi saying that Hashem says nice things. We had Mitzuda says that the learning of Torah is the nice things. We had the Radak says that we had the Radak saying that he just puts general that there's many different honorable things that are said about Yerushalayim. But Mamlei says that's the beginning of the pasuk. But what is its main praise? Yeah, we could say many nice things about Yerushalayim, but what's the ikar? What's the main thing? Is that it's Ir Elikim, that it's the city, it's Hashem's city. And then the Mamlei continues and he says, so what am I going to bless you with? So Nichbadis Miduvarbach, there are a lot of beautiful things that are said about Yerushalayim, but what's the main thing is Ir Elikim, that it's Hashem's city. What am I going to bless you? That Sela should be forever. Pasuk, that's pasuk. Pasuk Dalid, the fourth pasuk. So, here it mentions 4 different nations, right? It mentions the Egyptian nation, the Babylonian, the Philistines. It mentions Tyre. It mentions Ethiopia.
These were all opponents and of Yisrael who at times conquered them or fought with them.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah. So the Mitzuda says that Hashem will remind these nations, right? These 5 nations that we mentioned over here, about Yoidoi, about the ones that know me, the ones that I love, the Jewish people, and will bring the Jewish people back to Eretz Yisrael, to Israel. And he'll point out Zeyulad Sham. He'll point out this one was born here, this one was born here, and the way the Mitzuda says, and we're going to mention in the email, it's brought out more than once here in this chapter. Zeyulad Sham, this one was born here, is not necessarily this was born here, meaning that his ancestors were here. This is a Yid. Even if this person doesn't remember that he's a Jew, or for assimilation, or for other reasons, they don't remember that they're Jewish, Hashem is going to collect them and bring them to Eretz Yisrael.
You can interpret askir meaning askir lachem. Hashem is going to remind you of Rachav, Bavel, all these places where you fought and where you were subjugated and where in the end you were saved. You were saved
Yeah,
from
for
this.
sure. Absolutely.
Is it also
Yeah.
possible, that it's because there's always been a Jew or a Jewish person living in the land? I know that between the Churban, the first and second Churban, there were Jews, but were there Jews during the time of these countries and destructions?
There was always sometimes very small, but there was always a presence, always throughout the generations. Yeah.
So to me, that when I read it, then that's what I thought it was, is that he was showing them that you may claim and you may claim and you may claim, but look, this one's been here, this one was born here, and this one was born here, and so
Very
they
good.
have
Says
they
Zeh.
have the right.
Especially
Right. Right. Yeah. Shkach. Yeah.
when it says Zeh Yulad Sham, Zeh is a very special.
Individual. It's not like zeh as a means,
That,
but specific, not plural.
that's right. It's in the Chumash, whenever it says Zeh, they always say, oh, this is Hashem pointing
Pointing,
to something
yeah.
specific. Zeh.
Yeah.
So might have some significance.
Yeah. The Alshich brings out, he says, it's a powerful statement from the Alshich. He says, when you have a nation that gets swallowed up by another nation, so you have many nations that disappeared over the years. And we talk about it all the time about historical nations that started up with the Jewish people, and today where can you find them? In the encyclopedia, on Wikipedia online, you can find them. That's the only place you can find them. Their ancestors are here, but we can't differentiate them from anybody else, right? So the Alshich says it's interesting. The Jewish people were in Egypt for 210 years. The Jewish people were in exile in Babylonia for 70 years, right? In different places that they and it took other nations less than that to totally disintegrate, to totally disappear when they get swallowed up in another nation. Says, but that's what Hashem is saying. That's what David HaMelech is saying in this pasuk. Ask here, we could remember when the Jews were in Rav, when they were in Egypt, when they were in Babylonia, etc., etc. But what happened? They didn't assimilate. They're still identifiable. What is identifiable? Zeyulad Sham. This one was born in Jerusalem. This one was born in Jerusalem. This one was born in Jerusalem. This one's ancestors were born in Jerusalem, etc., etc. So that's the way the Alshich learns this pasuk. Yeah. And the Rebbe actually brings it down and brings down this pasuk, and he says it's a beautiful thing when discussing a Yid in Galus, a Jew in exile, whether physically in exile or spiritually in exile, right? Because sometimes now we are physically in Galus, we're physically in exile, but some people are also spiritually in exile, and this pasuk brings out the idea that Zeyulat Sham, no. Everybody's a child of Tzion, a child of Zion, no matter what they're going through, no matter where they are, whether in Golus or otherwise. Pasuk number 5. So the Metzodos explains this pasuk, Ulitzion, that it's going to be announced. Ye'omer, it's going to be announced in Tzion, in Zion, in Yerushalayim. That's what Tzion is. It's going to be announced, Ish v'ish yulad ba, how everybody who descends from there is coming back. That Ish v'ish yulad ba, that when Mashiach comes, or when we go out of exile, when we go out of Galus, that Ish v'ish yulad ba, all these people, their ancestors are originally from Israel. It's actually interesting that over the years, the Rebbe always used to talk about this idea that our claim to Eretz Yisrael is not a Balfour Declaration, Chas v'shalom. That's not why that's not the legitimacy that we have to live in our land. It's not. It's ridiculous to even say that, because you say that again. What's our legitimacy to land that Hashem gave it us? Very, 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 very straightforward and very simple, and that we've been living there for thousands of years. That's our legitimacy. And the Rebbe would say, politicians are saying things about, look, the UN partitioned the land and they gave us, and that's why we have legitimacy there because Hashem created the world and decided that the land of Israel goes to the Jewish people, plain and simple, and we've been there for thousands of years. And over here in the pasuk also, David HaMelech says Hashem is going to say, "Ish v'ish yulad ba." This one was born here. This one was born here. Whether physically born here or his ancestors were born here, the same idea. The Radak says similarly that Hashem, creator of all things, creator of the universe, creator of the world, creator of all places, he designated one place to be above all others. He decides, he establishes it to be Elyon, to be above. That's Yerushalayim. The Mamlayah says, that when people travel, this is the way he describes it. It says when people travel, and they get to a new country, they get to a new place, it takes them time to acclimate to the new weather, to the new weather patterns. My mother, she lives here in Montreal. She grew up in Long Beach, California. She still didn't acclimate to the winters here in Montreal. She'll tell you, she still didn't acclimate to the winters here in Montreal. So you move to a place, you have to get used to the new weather. So the Mamlayas brings down, he says, when you move to Eretz Yisrael, there's no acclimation necessary. It has everything. It has all different types of weather patterns. It has all, and with mitzad the air in Eretz Yisrael, which the Gemara says, Avira Eretz Yisrael machkim, that the air of Eretz Yisrael makes you smart. Different things like that. But it's something unique about Eretz Yisrael that it has everything. Many years ago, when I just moved here, I also used to work part-time in my father's office. I used to do some stuff for him. And I remember I was sitting at my desk over there in my father's office, sitting at my laptop, and there was a picture of Chana and I standing in front of water by a beach, in front of water. And I'm trying to remember his first name, Rabbi Brot. He passed away. Abba's father. He created a yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, but he used to come to Montreal once a year. His mother lives here, and he used to come to visit his mother. And he's very close to my father, and he used to come into my father's place all the time. So he comes in, he sees the picture, and he says, "Is that Eretz Yisrael?" So I said, "Nah, it happens to be Florida." So he looks and he says, "Nah, Eretz Yisrael is the best, because Eretz Yisrael you have everything. You have anything that you're going to go travel anywhere in the world for, you can find it in Eretz Yisrael." His words said, "You're looking for a beach, come to Eretz Yisrael. You're looking for architecture, you go to Europe for architecture, go to Eretz Yisrael." And I mentioned a whole bunch of things that you might travel to this place, to that place. Everything you have that in Eretz Yisrael. So it reminded me of this because the Mamleah says that when it comes to acclimating to a place, Eretz Yisrael has all of it because it's such a holy place, because it's Hashem's land, the one that Hashem chose. So there's everything there, and everybody could just enjoy instead of needing to acclimate. Okay. So now there's a Gemara. There's a Gemara that asks a question. It says in this pasuk number 5, Uletzion to Tzion, Tzion Yamer, in Tzion it will be announced, Ish v'ish. So what does it mean, Ish v'ish? Why the double lashon of Ish, person and person? So you could read it in a poetic way, and then it makes sense, poetic way. So you had it, all people, all peoples and all peoples. Okay, we could say that, and that's fine. But the Gemara, and that's one of the answers in the Gemara. But the Gemara says that there's Ish that is Yulad Ba. There are people that were born in Eretz Yisrael, and then there's other Ish. What's the other Ish referring to? So the Gemara says anybody who yearns to see Tzion is considered like Yulad Ba, that he was also born there, and eventually Hashem will help that he'll make it to Eretz Yisrael. So yearning to Eretz Yisrael is a powerful thing. So I was reading this Gemara, and I was reading a note on it that someone wrote, one of the Sfarim that I have, and he brings down a story. And the story is that during World War I, when Israel was under the Ottoman Empire, and the Turks, they wanted to kick out any Jew. They didn't want Jews they didn't want the Jews there. So they tried to kick out the Jews. Now, their deal was that anybody who was born in Israel obviously could stay, but if you were coming from somewhere else, you gotta go. There was no real paperwork, and from what I understand, they had to make an oath that they were born in Israel in order to stay. There was a Rabbi Sitrin in Petach Tikva, Again, this is the beginning. This is in the war, during World War One. So Rabbi Sidron he sends a letter, a telegram, or whatever, to his mechutin, who's the Rogachover guy. Rogachover guy is a famous prodigy from previous generation, a genius in halacha, and writes to him, asking him, because it's a big uproar in the Jewish community, are you allowed to lie? Are you allowed to make this oath? If you didn't really to leave Eretz Yisrael at that point, it would have been trouble to go to Europe, etc. It wouldn't have been good for the Jews. So, are you allowed to lie? Are you allowed to make this oath? So the Rogachover just wrote back, check this Gemara, the Gemara that we just mentioned. What does the Gemara say? The Gemara says that the pasuk over here says ish v'ish yulad ba. Ish v'ish, the person was born there. And what does the Gemara say? That whether someone is born there or mitzapeh, or someone that yearns to see tzion, he's considered to be yulad ba, that he's considered to be that he was born there. So they understood from that answer that you're allowed to make this oath to the Turks that you were born there, even if you weren't born there. So that was the answer the Rogachover gave based on this Gemara. He says, it's a Jew is so connected to Eretz Yisrael that even just yearning to be in Eretz Yisrael, it's as if he was born there, based on this pasuk. I don't know more of the story of that. It was just the telegram that he sent back that I sent. Okay, pasuk Vav, pasuk 6. Hashem Yisper b'chsei v'amim. Literal translation that Hashem counts in the writings of the nations. The Rebbe someone once came to the Rebbe on January 1st, and the Rebbe wished him a happy new year, and the guy was a little taken aback, and the Rebbe says, "You're surprised I'm wishing you a happy new year." It says in the pasuk, Hashem Yisper b'chsei v'amim, that Hashem counts according to the writings of the nations. So meaning just because it's not our New Year, it's not our Rosh Hashanah, but still, I mean, it's not something. If it's something unholy, of course we want to do it, but it's not something unholy. It's just not something holy. So therefore, the Rebbe used this pasuk in order to wish someone a happy New Year. Side note, not what it means here necessarily. Meaning it's not the literal translation of the pasuk. Rashi says that when Mashiach comes and people will come, even non-Jews will come to Yerushalayim to offer praises to Hashem because they'll recognize Hashem Echad, one God, etc., etc. So Hashem will count b'chsei v'amim. Will look at the This is what I mentioned in the email. Hashem is going to look in the listings of the Amim of the other nations and say, you're really Jewish. You're really Jewish. Your ancestors were first to convert, but you're really Jewish. Your ancestors assimilated. Huh?
This is Yishri.
It's also the whole chapter. Yeah. Because Yulad Ba, the whole idea of Yulad Ba is like born there, that Hashem is going to, yeah, but Ish V'ish also. Yeah. Yeah.
It has to do with Mashiach because all the Jews are going to be returned to Eretz Yisrael. Many of them never were in Eretz Yisrael. It's their forefathers.
Right.
It's previous generations.
Exactly.
Which were there and they were dispersed. But now their heritage is still there. And they're all going to be returned.
Yeah.
Like they were born there.
Yeah.
Their heritage will be direct.
Yeah. Rashi also brings down the same thing. Not only will Hashem say this one is Jewish and that one's Jewish, meaning that your ancestors were Jewish and therefore you're Jewish. Also, there's lineage that's lost of who's a Kohen, who's a Levi, right? There are Kohanim today that don't know that they're Kohanim. Their great grandfathers are a Kohen, and they don't know for whatever reason because it wasn't important to their great grandfather. So it's something that happened in my family. I'm a Levi, and we didn't. My father didn't know that he was a Levi. My father's a Baal Tshuva, so he's his father and his grandfather didn't know either, and it was found on a matzeva of a grave of his great grandfather that it said a Levi, and now we know that we're Leviim. I mean, this happened when I was a child. Recently, I did some research because I wanted to find that matzeva, and I found it. It's in Toronto. It's his great grandfather that came over to Canada in 1906 from Russia, from Ukraine. But we found I actually have a picture of the Matzev in Toronto. One day I'm going to go to Toronto and check it out. But it says Halevi on it, and that's it. But for a few generations it was lost, right? So you imagine some families it's lost already for many generations, and Hashem is going to say, no, you're a Kohen, you're a Levi, you're etc. etc. To fill in the lineage for everybody. So it's not only of who's Jewish, but also other ideas in lineage. It says, "And Histaris Hashem Elokeinu." It's a pasuk. And Histaris Hashem Elokeinu v'Niglas Lanu v'Neinu Ad Olam. That the hidden secrets of what that we don't know, Hashem knows. And when Mashiach comes, He'll reveal to us those things that we need to know. Yeah, so that's the idea of pasuk vav. Skip that. Pasuk 7, pasuk zayin. Visharim kechaylim kol mayonebach. So Visharim, I'll give it to you the way the Alshich explains it. Visharim is referring, you know what? Before that, Sharim is from the word shar, from singing, right? So there's those that sing. Chaylim is, so I saw two translations. Over here he translates it's dancing. I saw others that translated it as playing musical instrument. So there's those that sing, there's those that are dancing or playing a musical instrument. Obviously in praise of Hashem. We're talking about Tehillim over here, right? So it's obviously in praise of Hashem. Kol mayonei bach, all my innards, everything that I want is towards you. So my singing or my dancing or my playing of music is all towards praise towards Hashem. That's called mayonei bach. That's the basic idea of what this pasuk is coming to say. But the Alshich comes and says, it's actually this pasuk is coming to include the women. Visharim is referring to the men because they're singing. Kechaylim, we know famously that after the splitting of the sea and they sang Shira, Miriam went and took the women with what? With tambourines, right? They played musical instruments. So Kechaylim, the Alshich says, is referring to the women. They'll sing or play Hashem's praises, so it's including the women in this what the Alshich says.
When they sang, when Miriam and the other women, did the women sing or
they didn't sing? They played it. They played the instrument. The Alshich continues and he says, okay, so Visharim talking about the men, Kechaylim talking about the women, and Kol Mayonei Bach, he says, is a divine inspiration that David HaMelech had when he created this chapter of Tehillim, that Hashem answers the men and the women, that he answers in the name of Hashem, that all my thoughts are, Kol Mayonei, all my thoughts are towards you, the Jewish people.
It's a positive capital.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a trace of the usual anxiety that he has, either he's being chased or he has people who are against him. This is like such a refreshing, it's like a song. So he's so positive about where he is, about Yerushalayim.
Yeah.
It's very positive.
Yeah. Okay. That we finished chapter Pei Zayin 87.